Single mother hired to bathe a reclusive millionaire. And the unexpected happens. Before we begin the story, leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. If you want to save your son, come to Ravenhill Manor. But once you step inside, there's no way back. That was the final line in the handwritten letter. No signature, no explanation. Just a faded envelope slipped beneath her door like a whisper from fate. Anna didn't know who sent it. She only knew that morning, with trembling hands and a sleeping child in her arms, she packed their things and walked into a place that would change her life. Forever. Anna was only 26, but her eyes had the weariness of someone who'd lived 2 lifetimes, one for herself and one for her son. She lived in a damp attic apartment above a laundromat. The windows barely opened, and at night the walls shivered with the passing trains. Her son, Leo, just 6 years old, rarely spoke. Diagnosed with severe speech delay, he expressed his world through drawings and muffled sounds, echoes of words that never quite found their shape. Every day, Anna juggled 3 jobs: cleaning tables at a diner, making beds at a budget motel, handing out flyers in the wind. Every dollar she saved brought her a little closer to the therapy Leo desperately needed, and every month the goal seemed just a little further away. Then, one gray morning, the diner manager called her in early. "Business is slow," he muttered, not meeting her eyes. "We're letting people go." No notice, no severance. Just a door closed quietly in her face. Anna walked out into the drizzle with no plan, no job, and a heavy silence settling in her chest. That's when the woman appeared. Well-dressed, heels tapping sharply against the wet pavement. She didn't ask Anna's name. She didn't say her own. She simply slipped a folded note into Anna's hand and walked away. "Private caregiver wanted. High pay. No questions asked. Come immediately." No address. Just a phone number, scribbled in rushed, fading ink, like the person writing it wasn't sure they wanted it to exist. Anna stared at the paper, standing motionless under the light rain. She had always promised herself she wouldn't take risks. But for Leo, there was no room left for pride or fear. That night, as Leo slept beside her, Anna dialed the number. A calm woman's voice answered. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m., Ravenhill Manor. The gate will open for you." Anna said yes. She didn't know what waited inside Ravenhill, but she knew. If she still wanted a future for Leo, she had to walk through that gate. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It fell in a steady, misty sheet as the taxi climbed the winding hill. Trees leaned in on both sides like silent watchers. Ravenhill Manor rose from the fog, tall, dark, and still, like a painting left in a forgotten museum. Its wrought-iron gate groaned open slowly, deliberately, as if the house itself was deciding whether or not to let her in. Anna stepped out, holding Leo's hand tightly. The air was colder inside the estate. The trees were older. And the silence didn't feel empty. It felt listening. The front door creaked open. A tall, severe-looking woman stood waiting. Gray dress, sharp eyes, hair pinned with military precision. "You must be Anna." "Yes. I'm Margot, housekeeper." Her voice was flat, efficient, but not unkind. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "The master of the house doesn't want sympathy. He's locked his heart away long ago. Just do your job, and never ask questions that don't want answers." Anna didn't reply. She simply held Leo's hand tighter. They were led through a grand hallway with cold marble floors and faded chandeliers. The lights were dim, filtered through stained glass that colored the dust in reds and blues. At the west wing, Margot opened a plain wooden door. "This is your room," she said curtly. "The boy will be taken to the back quarters." Then she was gone. At precisely 4 p.m., Margot returned. "This way. The master is waiting." She guided Anna to what she called the study. The room was vast, quiet, lined with tall bookcases and windows that faced the gray sky. A grand piano sat unused in the corner. In the center of the room, a man in a wheelchair faced the window, back straight, shoulders squared. He didn't turn as they entered. "Mr. Elias Alden," Margot introduced. "This is the caregiver." Only then did the man slowly turn around. Elias was in his 40s, with dark, neatly cut hair and a face sharp as broken glass. His eyes were striking, not because of their color, but because of how they looked right through people. One hand rested on the chair's arm, gloved in leather. The fingers beneath it didn't move. He studied Anna for a long moment, then asked in a voice as cold as the room, "Are you afraid of the past?" Anna hesitated. Not because she feared it, but because she didn't know what he meant. "No." He nodded once. "Good. You start tomorrow." No welcome, no small talk, no mention of Leo. As she turned to leave, the door shut behind her on its own, with a sound that felt more like a lock than a farewell. The first time Anna assisted Elias during his morning routine, the house felt unusually still. It was early, before sunrise. Outside the windows, a cold mist blanketed the garden, and the light filtering through the glass was dim and blue, like the breath of dawn itself. Elias waited in his chair, his expression unreadable as always. The silence between them wasn't hostile, but it was not friendly either. It was the silence of a man who had made peace with distance. Anna helped him position near the shower bench. She moved with quiet efficiency, mindful not to overstep. Every touch was clinical, every motion measured. But then he turned, reaching for the handrail. And that's when she saw it, a scar, long, deep. It ran diagonally across his back, thick and pale against his skin, as if it had been carved there with something brutal. It wasn't just a wound, it was a story written in flesh, a scream that had long since faded into silence. Anna didn't gasp. She didn't ask. She simply adjusted the shower nozzle, made sure the water was the right temperature, and stepped back. But the image stayed with her long after she returned to her room. In the days that followed, Anna settled into her role, punctual, observant, quiet. Elias remained aloof, always polite, always direct, never warm. He moved through the house like a shadow with purpose, a man who knew exactly where to go and exactly who he didn't want to speak to. But little by little, Anna began to see beyond the surface. She noticed how he never used the grand staircase, though the elevator nearby had been recently serviced. She noticed how he avoided the east wing, the hallway with the piano room. And she noticed how, despite his rigid posture and sharp words, Elias often stared out the windows for long stretches of time, as if waiting for someone who would never return. One afternoon, while dusting the bookshelves in the library, Anna reached for a volume of poetry. As she pulled it from the shelf, something thin and weathered slipped from its pages and floated gently to the floor. She bent down and froze. It was a photograph, faded at the edges but still intact. In it, Elias stood tall. No wheelchair, dressed in a dark suit with his sleeves rolled up. He was laughing, not the kind of small, polite smile she'd seen on his face now, but a full, unguarded expression. Alive. Beside him stood a woman, early 30s, dark-haired, eyes glowing with a mixture of sadness and light. She leaned into him. One of her hands rested on his chest. The other was missing a wedding ring. Anna turned the photo over. Nothing. No names, no date, just silence on paper. She slid it back into the book without a word. That night, something strange happened. Around midnight, Anna rose to check on Leo. The boy had been restless all evening, murmuring in his sleep about the lady by the glass. As she passed the hallway to the library, Anna heard it. Music, very soft, almost fragile, like someone brushing their fingertips across the edge of a dream. It was a piano. She stopped. The door to the library was open just a crack. She stepped forward, slowly, and peered inside. There was Elias, seated in front of the grand piano. The cloth cover had been removed. Moonlight poured through the high windows, bathing the floor in silver. He wasn't playing. His fingers hovered above the keys, trembling just slightly. His face was still, but his eyes, they were wet. Not with fresh tears, but with the kind of grief that no longer needs permission to exist. Anna didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply watched. And in that moment, something shifted. Not in him. In her. She saw not a broken man, not a bitter recluse, but someone who was once whole, someone who had loved deeply and lost violently. The next morning, Anna asked Margot about the piano. The housekeeper hesitated. "That room used to be the brightest in the house," she said finally. "But after the accident, he never touched it again. Until recently." "What accident?" Anna asked. Margot met her eyes, and something flickered behind her own. "You'll have to ask him that yourself." She didn't. Not yet. But now, every time Anna passed Elias, in the hallway, in the study, during therapy, she noticed what others might miss. The way his jaw clenched whenever someone mentioned the word music. The way his hand lingered near the window when Leo's laughter echoed from the garden. And the way his shoulders always tensed, just before he said something kind. There were scars on Elias that no doctor could treat. But Anna, she was beginning to see them, and more importantly, she didn't look away. It was a Tuesday afternoon, clear skies, calm winds, and yet, when the black car pulled up to the gravel driveway of Ravenhill, the air inside the estate shifted, as if the house itself had taken a breath it didn't want to release. Catherine Alden stepped out. Tall, impeccably dressed, not a strand of hair out of place. She wore white, not soft ivory, but the kind of white that dared you to find a flaw. She smiled at the staff as she entered, but her smile was a thing of ice. It didn't reach her eyes. It didn't try to. From the grand foyer to the drawing room, every footstep echoed with confidence. And something else. Control. Anna first saw her in the sunroom. The light filtering through the sheer curtains lit Catherine like a painting, all elegance and angles. But underneath that beauty there was something off, like a perfectly tuned piano that still played a note too sharp. "You must be Anna," Catherine said, with a sweetness so exact it felt engineered. "I've heard things. Nothing bad, yet." Anna stood quietly, alert. Catherine approached, close enough for her perfume to take over the room, something floral and expensive, but sharp, like roses with thorns. "My sister married Elias," she continued, tracing her finger along a dustless shelf. "She died because she trusted the wrong person." Her gaze landed on Anna, sharp and unblinking. "And now I see history trying to repeat itself." Anna didn't respond. She'd met women like Catherine before, women who didn't need to shout to wound you. Their weapon was tone and timing. Later that evening, Anna opened her wardrobe to find something tucked neatly beneath her folded sweaters. A letter. Plain paper. No name, just a single line, typed in cold black ink. "Leave, while you still can, or regret will teach you why you should have." Anna held it for a moment. No trembling, no gasp, but her heartbeat quickened. She looked towards the door, already knowing who had placed it there. Catherine. Over the next few days, Catherine's presence grew like a shadow that never moved, always there, always watching. She was courteous in public, venomous in private. To Elias, she played the role of loyal family. "I'm just here to protect your interests, dear," she would say with a hand on his shoulder, lingering a little too long. To the staff, she was commanding yet subtle, issuing orders with a smile, criticizing with compliments. And to Anna? She was silence and stares, passing comments disguised as politeness, and sudden appearances in hallways that were supposed to be empty. But Catherine's greatest weapon wasn't noise, it was doubt. She spoke with the precision of someone who knew exactly where to press, and just how hard. "I'm sure you mean well," she whispered to Anna one morning in the corridor. "But men like Elias, they break things, and the women who try to fix them, they break too." Then a smile, a perfect, frozen smile, and she walked away. What Catherine didn't realize, not yet, was that Anna had walked through colder nights than this, and she didn't scare easy. But she was smart enough to know. This was only the beginning. And Catherine? She wasn't just here to visit. She was here to reclaim something that never truly belonged to her. It happened on a rainy Thursday. The sky above Ravenhill was blanketed in slate-gray clouds, and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves and old stone. Most of the estate remained quiet, save for the occasional creak of floorboards or the distant echo of a clock ticking down a hallway too long to measure. Anna was in the study, reviewing Elias's medication chart with Margot, when the front door opened. Footsteps, small, fast, unafraid, echoed down the marble corridor. And then a voice. "Hi, curious, unmistakably young. Is this where the man in the chair lives?" Margot turned, confused. Anna froze. Leo. Leo, 6 years old, brown curls sticking to his forehead, rain boots splattered with mud, stood in the foyer like he belonged there. Apparently, the babysitter had turned away for a moment, and the boy had wandered down the road, following the iron gates like it was the path to a secret world. He looked around with wide eyes. "This house is big," he announced. "It smells like my grandma's church." Before anyone could stop him, he peeked into the next room, and there, seated near the fireplace, was Elias, the man in the chair. Their eyes met. Leo tilted his head, studying the man as only a child could, with complete honesty and no fear. And then he asked, without hesitation, "Do you know how to smile?" The question hit the room like thunder wrapped in innocence. Elias blinked. He hadn't expected company, much less this boy, a stranger, yet not. Something about Leo's gaze was disarming, not invasive, just honest. And then something shifted. His lips moved, just slightly, but it was a smile. Small, barely there, the kind that had been locked away for so long it wasn't sure how to return. But Leo saw it. And he grinned. "Good," the boy said. "I'm making a drawing of you later." That night, Anna tucked Leo into the guest room, still shaken by the scare of his unexpected visit. "You can't wander like that," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "I didn't wander," he insisted. "I was visiting." She laughed through her sigh. Leo reached into his little backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Crayons had bled through the back. "I made it in the car, for him." Anna unfolded it, a crayon drawing, bold and colorful. Elias standing, not sitting, in the middle of a lush garden. Leo held his hand. There were flowers everywhere, even in the sky. "He's walking," Leo said, sleepy now. "I think he misses it." The next morning, Anna placed the drawing quietly on the table in the library. By evening, it was gone, and the day after that, it was framed, hung on the wall, just above Elias's favorite armchair. No one said a word, but that afternoon, something even more unexpected happened. As Anna was arranging fresh linens, she glanced out the window and froze. Elias was outside, alone. He had wheeled himself to the edge of the garden, a place he had avoided for years. Not because it was inaccessible, but because it hurt too much to remember. The garden had once been alive with laughter, footsteps, and piano notes drifting from open windows. And now, it was Leo's drawing, simple and sincere, that pulled him back. Elias sat there in the fading sunlight, not saying a word. His eyes scanned the flower beds, the stone paths, the empty bench under the old willow tree. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. But his hands rested softly on the wheels, no longer clenched, and his shoulders were no longer braced for pain. That evening, as Anna brought him tea, she noticed something new. The drawing was no longer just decoration. It was a reminder, a goal, a promise whispered in crayon that what's broken might still find its way back to whole. The atmosphere within Ravenhill Manor had shifted subtly since Anna's arrival. The once oppressive silence now carried whispers of change, like the faint rustling of leaves before a storm. Anna moved through the grand halls with a newfound purpose, her presence a gentle disruption to the long-standing stillness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the marble floors, Anna found herself drawn to the library, a vast room lined with towering shelves that seemed to hold the weight of countless stories and secrets. The scent of aged paper and polished wood filled the air, evoking a sense of reverence and mystery. While dusting the mahogany desk that stood as the room's centerpiece, Anna's fingers brushed against a small, ornate box tucked away beneath a stack of ledgers. The box, though unassuming, exuded an air of importance. With a hesitant breath, she opened it to reveal a collection of documents, bank statements, legal papers, and correspondences, all bearing the unmistakable signature of Catherine. As Anna's eyes scanned the contents, a pattern emerged. Substantial sums of money transferred to offshore accounts, assets discreetly moved, and properties signed over under dubious circumstances. The implications were staggering. Catherine, the poised and calculating sister-in-law, had been orchestrating a systematic siphoning of Elias's wealth, exploiting his trust and preoccupation with personal grief. The weight of this discovery pressed heavily upon Anna's conscience. She grappled with the decision to confront Elias, understanding that unveiling such betrayal would shatter the fragile semblance of stability he had managed to reclaim. Yet, her innate sense of justice and burgeoning affection for Elias compelled her to act. That night, as the manor was enveloped in the quietude of midnight, Anna approached Elias in his study. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of a single lamp, casting gentle halos around the intricate patterns of the Persian rug. Elias sat in his wheelchair, gazing out of the window into the abyss of the night, his profile etched with contemplation. "Mr. Alden," Anna's voice was steady, yet laced with underlying tension. "I came across some documents today that I believe you should see." Elias turned slowly, his piercing eyes locking onto hers, searching for the unspoken truths that lingered beneath her words. Without breaking the gaze, he extended a hand, silently requesting the papers. As he perused the documents, a myriad of emotions flickered across his face: confusion, disbelief, and a profound sadness that settled into the lines around his mouth. The room's silence was palpable, filled with the weight of unvoiced turmoil. After what felt like an eternity, Elias spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted her. She was family." Anna felt a pang of empathy, recognizing the depth of his betrayal. "I'm so sorry," she offered, her words sincere yet insufficient. Elias's demeanor shifted, a steely resolve replacing the vulnerability. We must act carefully. Catherine is not one to be underestimated. In the days that followed, a delicate game of strategy unfolded within the walls of Ravenhill Manor. Elias, with Anna's unwavering support, began to reclaim control over his affairs, meticulously unraveling the web of deceit that Catherine had spun. Legal counsel was sought, assets were frozen, and plans were set in motion to confront Catherine with irrefutable evidence. The confrontation was inevitable. On a crisp autumn afternoon, with the golden hues of the season casting a deceptive warmth over the estate, Catherine arrived at the manor, oblivious to the storm awaiting her. She entered the drawing room with her usual grace, exuding an air of confidence and entitlement. Elias, seated upright in his wheelchair, exuded a calm authority. Anna stood nearby, a silent sentinel, her presence a testament to the strength that had been cultivated through adversity. "Catherine," Elias began, his tone measured yet devoid of the familial warmth that once colored their interactions. "We need to discuss these." He gestured to the array of documents spread across the coffee table. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of apprehension betraying her composed facade. "I'm not sure I understand," she replied smoothly, though a subtle tension laced her words. Elias's gaze remained unwavering. "You've been systematically draining my assets, forging my signature, and betraying the trust that binds family." A tense silence enveloped the room, the weight of the accusation hanging heavily between them. Catherine's mask of composure cracked, revealing a glimpse of the desperation that simmered beneath. "You have no proof," she countered, though the tremor in her voice belied her assertion. Anna stepped forward, placing a small recording device on the table. With a press of a button, Catherine's own voice filled the room, detailing transactions and intentions with damning clarity. The color drained from Catherine's face as the reality of her exposure settled in. She opened her mouth to speak, to weave another web of deceit, but found herself ensnared by the very threads she had spun. Elias's voice was resolute. "I trusted you, Catherine. Despite everything, I never imagined you capable of such betrayal." Catherine's shoulders sagged, the weight of her actions pressing down upon her. Without another word, she turned and left the room, the echo of her retreating footsteps a somber cadence to the unraveling of her schemes. As the door closed behind her, a profound silence settled over the room. Elias exhaled deeply, a release of the tension that had gripped him for so long. He turned to Anna, gratitude and remorse interwoven in his gaze. "Thank you," he said simply, the depth of his appreciation conveyed in those two words. Anna offered a gentle smile, understanding that healing was a journey they would embark upon together. In the days that followed, the manor seemed to breathe easier, the oppressive shadows lifting to reveal a home on the cusp of renewal. And as autumn gave way to winter, the promise of new beginnings blossomed within the hearts of those who had weathered the storm. Outside, the sky hangs low with gray clouds, casting muted light through the tall, dust-flecked windows. The fire crackles in the hearth, but the air in the room remains tense, thick with the silence of things unsaid for far too long. Elias stands. No longer bound to his wheelchair, he leans slightly on a sleek, dark cane, a symbol not just of recovery, but of reclaimed strength. His posture is proud, more so than it's been in years. Across from him, seated with calculated calm, is Catherine, elegant as always, yet visibly rattled by the presence of Anna and the family attorney. A slow breath escapes Elias's lips before he speaks, his voice measured, resolute. "I once thought losing my legs was the worst thing that could happen to me, but I was wrong. The worst was trusting the wrong person." Catherine lifts her chin, a cold smirk playing on her lips, but her fingers tighten around her handbag, betraying the tremble beneath the surface. "Are we really doing this?" she scoffs, voice sharp, amused. "Come now, Elias. If you've got evidence, let's see it. If not, stop the theater." Anna steps forward without a word. Her hands don't shake. She lays 3 items on the table: a stack of bank statements, a USB stick, and a crisp envelope. Inside, a recording of Catherine's phone call to an offshore bank. The room falls dead quiet. The attorney speaks, gently but firmly. Based on these materials, Mrs. Catherine Alden is under formal investigation for embezzlement and breach of fiduciary trust. Legal action is already underway. For a moment, Catherine is motionless. Then her entire facade cracks. "You think this proves anything?" she snaps, rising from her chair. "I gave 10 years of my life to this house, to Elias. When he couldn't walk, I was there. I held this family together while he wasted away. And now I'm the villain?" Elias doesn't flinch. His voice is calm, almost sorrowful. "You were there, yes, but not out of love, out of entitlement, out of ambition. Anna came later, but she brought what you never could: kindness, not pity, not manipulation, just care." Catherine's breath catches. Her face, always perfectly composed, begins to crumble. Eyes wild, mouth trembling, fury melting into disbelief. She looks around the room, for an ally, for sympathy, but finds none. The attorney makes a discreet gesture. Moments later, 2 private security officers step forward. Catherine doesn't resist. Her heels click sharply against the wooden floor as they escort her out, echoing like judgment through the quiet house. No one says goodbye. From the far end of the hall, Leo peeks in, his small frame barely visible behind the doorframe. He clutches a drawing in his hands. He looks up at his mother. "Mom, that lady made Mr. Elias sad, didn't she?" Anna kneels, wraps her arms around him. "Yes, sweetheart, but not anymore. From now on, he gets to be happy." Across the room, Elias watches them, eyes misty. Not from grief, but relief. For the first time in years, his shoulders aren't weighed down by secrets or shadows. He glances at the spot where Catherine had sat, then turns away. Not in anger, not even triumph, just peace. Symbolically, Elias stands tall, not just physically, but as a man reclaimed. And as dusk gives way to night, a chapter long overdue finally closes, with justice served and dignity intact. That afternoon, the sunlight spilled gently over the cobblestone paths of Ravenhill's garden, a place once drenched in sorrow, now blooming with life as if time had finally released it from grief. Anna had no idea why Elias invited her and Leo out there. Still, she followed his lead, holding her son's hand, walking silently through a garden that had once belonged to ghosts and memories. Elias was no longer in his wheelchair. He walked slowly, leaning on a cane, but every step declared something powerful. He was choosing to stand, not just on his feet, but in his heart. They stopped at the very center of the garden, where the sunlight fell warm and golden. Elias turned to face Anna. His eyes, once cold and guarded, now held the clarity of a lake after a storm. Leo, sensing something special, clutched a small velvet box he'd been asked to carry all day. He said nothing, only nodded when Elias gently took the box from his hands. Then, without warning, Elias knelt down on one knee. He steadied himself with the cane, opened the box, and revealed a simple yet elegant ring. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant. It was a symbol of something honest. He looked up at Anna. His voice was steady, quiet, and filled with quiet conviction. "Anna, you didn't just come here to care for a broken man. You swept away the dust in this house, and in my soul. You didn't make promises. You simply stayed. You're the only one who's ever made me want to keep walking. Not because of the past, but because of the future. Will you marry me?" Anna stood frozen. His words pierced through every wall she'd built, walls of fear, of exhaustion, of never feeling good enough. And just like that, they crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes. They weren't tears of shock. They were the quiet release of someone who'd finally been seen. Before she could even speak, Leo jumped up, shouting, "She said yes, right? Right? I'm going to draw your wedding now. I know how to draw the dress, too." Anna burst into a teary laugh. Elias smiled, eyes shimmering. The garden went silent for a heartbeat, then filled with laughter and warmth. No music played, no chandeliers sparkled, just sunlight through the trees, the faint scent of jasmine in the breeze, and a child's joy echoing in the air. For the first time in years, Ravenhill's garden wasn't a place of mourning. It had become the birthplace of something new. That night, Leo padded into Elias's study in his pajamas, clutching another drawing. "One more picture, just for you." Elias took the paper gently. It showed the three of them, Elias, Anna, and Leo, walking in a sunny park, hand in hand. But something else caught his eye. In the distant corner of the picture, almost hidden behind a tree, was the faint outline of a woman in a flowing white dress. She stood turned away, holding a bouquet, her long hair drifting as if caught in the wind. She wasn't looking at them. She wasn't part of the moment. But she was there. Elias stared at the image in silence. He didn't ask Leo about it. He simply placed the drawing on the desk, in the very spot where an old photograph used to sit. Then, turning to Anna, he spoke softly. "She never really left, but I think now she's smiling." Anna said nothing. She just came closer and took his hand. No big declarations, no dramatic music, just the sound of two hearts resting, finally, in peace. Some wounds aren't healed by time. They're healed by love, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't fix you, but holds you until you can breathe again. And some houses, once thought to be filled with nothing but ashes, can burn warm again, if someone chooses to stay and tend the fire. Have you ever stepped into someone's life and helped them believe in love again? Drop A in the comments if you've ever been that light for someone. What would you rate this story out of 10? And don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories that just might touch something deep inside you.